Hello, everyone, and welcome to Voices of Countercurrents, the podcast where we dive into the unspoken, the overlooked, and the beautifully complicated across cultures, borders, and hearts.
And we are your hosts. I'm Polina, originally from Russia.
And I'm Alex, German-born in the Principality of Liechtenstein, now living in the US, bringing a mix of cold winters and hot takes.
If you ever felt stuck between cultural codes, between different ways of loving, living, and relating, this is for you. Whether you are dating across cultures, navigating modern intimacy, or just trying to understand what the hell a situationship is, you are in the right place. Today, we are focusing on a part of life everyone experiences in one way or another. These is relationships. We will talk about the different types of relationships people have, from serious, committed partnerships to casual flings, and how those look in our countries.
This is a chance to understand how culture influences the way people connect. No judgments, just honest conversation.
Well, so so many types of relationships today. When I just uh, Google it and ask, like, can I have just the list of all type of relationship? And it's a huge worksheet, sheet with all these all types of relationship, and I'm getting lost in all this. Um, and what is a very interesting thing, I don't know if you know, we in Russia, we don't label every type, every nuance of relationship like it is done in English-speaking countries, and that this is a very interesting thing. Have you known it?
I've heard something of it before, I believe in previous conversations that we had, and it is very different from the English perspective in general, in which everything is given a particular context, and there's no concept that goes by in the clouds for too long before it receives a proper label.
Yeah, that's yes, that's true. It's all about the language itself, the concept, their mindset, I don't know, the mentality, I guess. I don't know. What do you think? Does it help relationships, or it doesn't? Uh, I've just started thinking about it right now at the moment. Is it a good idea to label um, every everything or not? Because actually, actually, what happens? We started already labeling them um, using English words. So in Russian, you can quite often hear hookups or what else? Mm, the situationship, no. But maybe what else? One night stand. Like no, mostly hookups. Yeah, that's the words which we took. So yes, that's it. So basically, we have like a kind of serious relationship, and then another thing is we just have hookups. So we decided to do it a little bit simpler. So just divide it into two groups. That's it. How's it going in the USA, for example? And do people really name everything like it is given in the list, or it's just like I know vocabulary words?
I think in general, the labeling of relationships occurs in two different roads. The first road you can call the institutional road, where the culture industry, as it were, makes up terms for people to become involved with, or simply terms that are deemed convenient for people to use for these new cultural constructs, which have yet to be old in the sense of making history, but are taking root even as we draw breath. And the second fork, of course, is the lived experience in the individual life and how the individual person experiences these new sociocultural forms and relationships. So I would say that in general, people in their own personal lives do not label everything precisely as such, especially not right now in 2025, where we are all living through this time of tremendous change, as I'm sure we've discussed before on many occasions. And people are just trying to find a solid footing. But definitely, there are, I would say, labels that people put to things once they have become solidified in their mind, but not necessarily right away.
Yeah, I think the reason is just because the in most cases, people starting their new connection, they actually they don't know uh, where they are at the moment, right? And they mostly thinking about next maybe strategy, or they're trying to to feel their own sensations about this person or that person instead of thinking about how to name this. Yes. um, I think this is the reason.
Yes, and I think that's very human in general. I'm sure that we all, whatever culture we are living in, go through that to some extent, of course, depending upon our culture and what our culture allows us to do. I know this phenomenon may take very different forms depending on what culture someone may be living in. Going further outside the Western perspective or the Russian perspective into other perspectives.
But for example, speaking about those names, which names do you or yes, like do you usually hear? What is common for your ears there?
I would say what is most common here in terms of the main terminology, to use such official labels, would be the first term that you brought up, the situationship, uh, in congruence with my personal favorite, which is being mostly committed. I actually heard someone use this terminology to me in a personal conversation I had when I inquired as to the uh, nature of their relationship with a certain person who was across the room during a party. And they described to me that they were mostly committed. And at first I
Interesting.
was quite confused by this. Yes, and it was kind of an interesting thing for me. And then I learned later on that this was sort of an underground term that actually was uh, under some unofficial usage.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Uh, Anything else? So I guess like one night stand and hook up, that's quite common, right?
A one night stand and hookup is quite common amongst the people who still do that.
Yeah,
Although the
of course.
statistics are actually demonstrating, interestingly enough, that the incidence of what one might call uh, very random sexual encounters is actually quite low now compared to what it was here in the 1970s and 80s and 90s, perhaps. The
Mhm.
culture has radically changed back in the other direction without anyone noticing due to the necessary conditions of life as it is now.
Yeah, we already went through this discussion before.
Yeah.
Do you think labels help or hurt relationships?
I think that labels can definitely help people when they are able to crystallize the relationship that they are in for themselves and for their partner.
Hmm.
Official labels such as traditional things like marriage, non-traditional things like a situationship, they are just cultural terms and guiding posts for how such things can be described in the collective context. But when it comes to personal life, what can people call their relationship themselves? Is this my boyfriend? Is this my girlfriend? Is this
Hmm.
my husband? Is this my wife? Those labels are very important because they are basically symbols for what the person is living. And we all need symbols for such things as that.
True. I could even express myself in more philosophical way when people label name objects, they understand objects, right? So, for example, learning English, if they are not able to name, or they, of course, they know something, but they are not able to pronounce, to speak it, then they don't know it, for example. And I think this has to do with everything. So labeling a kind of help people to better feel themselves, right? At some points.
Absolutely. Labels make everything clear for ourselves in a sense, especially when we are the ones who are the inventors of such labels. Sometimes in other areas of my life, I find myself inventing small labels for to categorize scientific implementations that I'm using in some experiment or other to do with my work. So certainly in a relationship, that can be, in a sense, essential.
Yeah. Yes. Talking honestly, I've known all these types of all these wide variety of relationships. When I came to India and when I just opened Tinder, these dating apps, and started seeing people there, I realized how many different approaches all people have. Because like we have, as I said, two ways, yeah, which is one is very, let's say, decent, a noble one, yeah, like you go on, you're looking for something serious, which means marriage, which eventually will reach this point, yeah. And what you are looking for something like dirty, let's say this, and which means hookups, right? And which is not good, and mm, people like even if they talk about it, it's still not very good. When I came to India, then I saw like this term situationship. I've never heard about it. But of course, if you ask me, for example, does it exist in Russia? It does. I'm sure there are plenty of guys and girls who does the same. Having a boyfriend, for example, let's say they live in a village somewhere, and let's say they have study in Moscow, for example, or in any big city, and they have a boyfriend in the village, and they have a boyfriend in the city, or backwards. I mean, the boy have girls, or he lives, he have shift. For example, he has shift somewhere in far east, in the far east, and he goes there, he has women there, which is situationship, obviously, and he has maybe a wife in his city, the native city. But of course, everything is here, but it doesn't have a name. Just this is what I have to add to it. Alex?
Why in Russia was there never a name given to these kinds of things? Is it because there was a sense of cultural shame and impropriety about it? And is that something in general which can prevent things from being labeled if there's a cultural fear about it?
I don't think that's it's a shame, but it's more like there, as I said, there should be um, something like um, very good or nothing. Yes, that's a kind of, I think of the idea that um, we are more maybe um, romantic or something. Uh, because given names, it's like kills already the if you give it a name, who knows, maybe it will go to the love, to the marriage, yes. And if you give a label, then it won't anyway, right? Because it's already a discouragement, huge discouragement. And I think this, I mean, for example, if we speak Russia, modern Russia. It comes from Soviet Union, right? And those time, there were no films, no movies, no books which could show any kind of hookups, or hookups would, let's say, would be treated like okay, like a fine. Thing. Yes, so like, okay, all right, normal thing. No, it would be always criticized in Russia. So it doesn't have its place in the in Russian, let's say, market of relationship. Absolutely, it's doesn't have the right to exist. Didn't have. I mean, Soviet Union. Right now, yeah, of course, the situation is different. But I think this is goes from religion, because religion criticize very much it, and it goes from Soviet Union general mm, mindset or general mentality. Uh, so I think so this way. Sorry.
If there was such a thing in the Soviet Union, such practices, because the Soviet Union as a cultural political bloc was a great suppressor of tradition. And although it had a very sociocultural, puritanical streak of its own kind, nevertheless, the native traditions of the Russian people that were reflected in the earlier Orthodox Church as existed in the Russian Empire and epochs before. Nevertheless, those were very suppressed during the Soviet time period in general. Was there a strong tendency of people in the Soviet Union, whether it was officially acknowledged or not, in film and entertainment, to have any kind of non-traditional relations? And was it more or less common in social reality in today's Russia?
Yeah, I agree that it was suppressed, but at the same time, um, uh, Soviet Union itself had a very strong moral, let's say, norms, which, as I mentioned, criticize this. So if you have a movie, for example, and someone does it, and of course it will be like a no way case. Yes, like it will be mostly like showed as a flaw, as their not appropriate behavior, and everyone would mm, um, would understand this, and the best hero uh, will show another line, let's say, uh, mm, appropriate, noble behavior. And this is how it was, and this is how people lived. And even the music, if you hear the music, for example, my mom's favorite singer, it's Muslim Magamayev. If you listen to his songs, his the best album is With Love to a Woman. It's something uh so, sublime, something like the woman is they are like a goddess, and I myself very much like it, because it gives me a feeling of something innocent, noble, and I always have, if I want to listen something, um, what is it? Something not uplifting me, but give me the right ground. I would rather go to this Muslim Magamayev song and listen to it. Uh, So it's not only films. Not only films were like that, but also books, songs, and everything. This is how it is, and mm, even if it was suppressed, many people still had religion, and it was not completely lost. And the religion itself brings not only the beliefs, but also kind of mindset, mentality, yes, moral norms, which maybe some people don't follow, don't go to churches, don't pray every day, but they unconsciously, subconsciously live according to their religious norms. Alex.
Yes, many people in general, we have sub-psychological patterning in our character that follows from our families, from our religious traditions, and also from our cultural traditions. And even if such things are put to the side or are suppressed in some way for long periods of time, they do have a curious way of reemerging, sometimes in unanticipated ways.
True. Uh, so we are a little bit far from our main topic right now. Um, let's go back to it uh, and discuss, for example, situationships. Um, in the USA, you didn't say anything. Give us a little bit of it.
Well, in the USA, people have the freedom in general to choose whichever path makes them the happiest. In some locations, more than others. In other locations, particularly in the Deep South, such things would probably still be frowned on and would not be approved of socially. In more liberal geographic locations within the United States and Canada, if I can also speak on Canada, I think I can, as they're both very culturally related in many ways. The general trend is to do that which makes you happy. However, such things and situationships are, in general, I would say, on the decline because people are doing whatever they can to survive in general, to cope with the economic situation. And they tend actually to be taking a more conservative approach to life, particularly in the younger generations, those who would be categorized in the demographic of Generation Z, those who are now around 27 years of age and younger, to separate them from the millennials who are over that age period now, who tended to be very liberal in their social norms. The youngest demographic is now pursuing a much more traditional approach that is centered on the idea that they have of marriage and family, which may not always be necessarily realistic because everyone is very lost and confused now. And they continue to do very much their own thing, but there is a reaching for something which is very different from the more liberal normative behavior pattern which became common here for the last 30, 40, 50 years in general.
Um, so, do people still have this like not of course they do, but what is the role of emotional intimacy without physical intimacy? Or I would say opposite way, what is the role of physical intimacy without emotional intimacy in the USA?
That's a very interesting question and a very complicated one. I can say that emotional intimacy in general is very rarely separated from genuine physical intimacy. Now, there are, of course, certain things which influence all of us, really, but in particular the societies which are most heavily exposed to it through such things as pornography and prostitution
Mm-hmm.
and the darker side of life, which separates physical intimacy from emotional intimacy in a variety of ways. But in general, when you become involved with someone here, it is every bit as emotional as it would be if you are becoming involved with someone somewhere else or in the context of a relationship between two people in an entirely different culture. Human emotion, romantic attachment, all of these things remain very, very important. And they always were, even if they became somewhat clouded by cultural attitudes and new normals, as they came to be called, over the last 20 or so years. So, in general, emotional intimacy is very closely tied to physical intimacy still. And as the economic landscape changes and people are forced to take life in a much more serious way again, a much less playful way, it will only become more so.
Um, is loneliness a big driver of relationships today?
Definitely, definitely. Loneliness has become a very severe problem in most Western countries. It could be even more severe in Western countries because of the systematic breakdown of the traditional family unit and also the systematic breakdown of any kind of traditional cultural norm. The consequence of that is a generation or two of people who do not have a social structure upon which they can rely, as, for example, so many of the Caucasian peoples in your particular region of Russia have. They have social structures that they can rely upon.
Mm-hmm.
Here, it is the exact opposite of that, particularly in the English speaking world, where people are living as atomized individuals and there is no structure to really give them guidance. So, gradually over time, this creates a lot of very, very lonely people. And certainly, such people in such a state have even more of a need for emotional closeness
Mm-hmm.
than perhaps someone who has led a a more balanced cultural life in a sense. And so you are seeing, as a continuation from my earlier statement, there is an even greater hunger for a return to the good parts of the past in the sense of a traditional approach to having a relationship among the very youngest demographics, such as my own, in the Western world. And I think it is precisely because of that social breakdown. And loneliness is a major driver. When you are all alone and you realize that something is quite wrong in the immediate world in which you live, and that it does not function the way it is supposed to, it serves as a major driver for you to become suddenly motivated and try to do something to fix it, if not in a collective sense, because there is no as yet collective sense of action, at least in your own personal life. And where does that start? It starts in the most intimate of spheres, in the romantic relationships in which one engages.
Right. I think it's listening to you, I was thinking about actually family structure because in Russia we still keep a family structure. Many people still live with their parents and they are not so lonely like in the USA. I guess that would be the answer also. And but at the same time, they still um, um, go in this variety of relationship. But I think the reason here is a little bit different. Maybe in the USA, people get kind of got used to their having this many types of relationships, and they're already not interested in it. Maybe that way, but in Russia, this is something new. You have dating app, you can meet a person any moment you just enrolled and this is still, I think, very much exciting thing for many people here. And it's more about exploring the world and having fun than real loneliness. Um, well. It's time to finish for today. But I think we have to make a next episode on the same topic because we still didn't come to the main things. What do you think, Alex?
Well, absolutely. The things we are talking about in these last couple of episodes, they're very existential for all of us, wherever in the world we may live. And so, in a sense, we are all living through it together. And it's quite hard to come to a successful conclusion about such topics as we do not yet know where they will all lead us in the course of our own lives.
Yeah, so today we had just a quick look at how relationships are shaped by culture, but we didn't discuss all aspects of it. But for now, I want to say thank you so much for listening to Voices of Countercurrents. We really appreciate spending your time with us. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe, share, and send us your feedback and questions.
And with that, we will see you again soon. До свидания.
До свидания.